When the blood sprayed across my face, I was saving a life. 3 minutes later, she was stable. 3 hours later, I was the #1 trending topic on X. Male doctor uses emergency as pretext to assault female patient. My fiancé shared the video with a caption. As a woman, I find it impossible to accept where his hands were. Nobody mentioned the ruptured artery. They only asked why my hand was on her upper thigh. I finished the last bite of my breakfast burrito, walked into the on-call room, and wrote 5 words. I am done saving people. The next day, the first patient died in an ambulance during a hospital transfer. The lights in the trauma bay were a piercing red. Blood was geyser NG from the patient's groin like a busted fire hydrant. The nurse's hands were shaking as she handed me the tray. Apply pressure. I barked. Nobody moved. I grabbed the surgical shears and dove in. Snip. Her leggings and underwear were shredded in one motion, exposing the wound. The rupture point in the artery was visible, a pulsing mess of crimson. I jammed my fingers down to occlude the bleed while my other hand reached for the suture needle. 3 minutes. The vessel was clamped and tied. Blood pressure began to climb. The monitor's frantic beeping settled into a steady, rhythmic hum. She was alive. As I pulled off my gloves, my hands were still trembling, not from fear, but from the slow retreat of adrenaline. A crowd had gathered at the window. The head nurse was pale. You cut her underwear off? She stammered. If I didn't, how was I supposed to find the bleed? I snapped. Wait for her to bleed out so we could undress her politely. Silence. I tossed the gloves in the biohazard bin and walked out. I was starving. I headed to the food truck at the corner of the block. The vendor knew my order. Everything on it, Doc. Everything. I took a bite, the tortilla crunching between my teeth. My phone buzzed. A notification from X popped up. #medical ethics, #Dr. Assault, #Metro General. My heart sank. I tapped the link. The video was a high-def shot of the trauma bay. It was a close-up of me kneeling on the floor, my hand pressed deep into the patient's inner thigh. The headline read, "Local doctor uses life-saving as cover for indecent act." The comment section was a war zone. That looked wrong on so many levels. Look at his hand placement. That's intentional. Even if he saved her, privacy and consent still matter, don't they? I chewed slowly, scrolling through the vitriol. My blood ran cold when I saw the handle of the person who shared the most viral version, Chloe Bennett. My fiancé. She had captioned it. I know he was saving her, but is a patient's dignity worth nothing? And his hand was right there. As a woman, I'm struggling to process this. I stopped chewing. The burrito tasted like cardboard. It scraped my throat as I forced it down. I didn't reply to her texts. I balled up the wrapper, threw it in the trash, and went back inside. At 7:50 the next morning, the chief of surgery called me into his office. The hospital director was there, too. The atmosphere was as cold as a morgue. The public outcry is severe, the director began. The Board of Health is already asking questions. I nodded. I didn't realize someone was filming. That was my mistake. The chief sighed. Ethan, we understand your intent, but the execution was questionable. She was dying, I said flatly. If I didn't cut those clothes, she'd be in the morgue right now. The director flipped through a file. The family hasn't filed a lawsuit yet, but we have to manage the optics. And I asked. He looked up. The hospital has decided to take disciplinary action. I laughed. Oh, I save her too fast, so I get a write-up? You're being demoted to junior resident status. Your annual bonus is revoked, and this will be a formal strike on your permanent record. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask why. The answer was written in Chloe's post. At lunch in the cafeteria, the looks I got had changed. People were whispering. I heard his hand was there for way too long. Well, she was a pretty girl. If he was really saving her, why'd he make it look so graphic? I walked past them with my tray. They went silent. I sat down and ate my pot roast, savoring the fat and the salt. That afternoon during shift change, a nurse ran up. Dr. Miller, the patient in bed 3 has shortness of breath. O2 sats are dropping to 85. I'm not the attending anymore, I said, not looking up from my chart. Get Dr. Hayes to handle it. She froze. But he's your patient. I took a sip of my coffee. Not anymore. Regulations say the attending of record handles emergencies. I haven't signed on to that case today. She stood there for a few seconds before sprinting away. Half an hour later, the code blue alarm blared. I sat in the break room scrolling through TikTok. The background music was a lofi hip-hop beat. Dr. Reed burst in. You're not going? It's a massive pulmonary embolism. I don't have the clearance to lead a code right now, I said. Last time I cut a pair of leggings, I was labeled a sexual predator. If I nick an artery during a central line, will I be charged with second-degree murder? He glared at me. You weren't like this before, Ethan. I turn off my phone. Before, I thought this was a hospital. Now I see it's a PR firm. He slammed the door as he left. 2 hours later, the patient died in the ambulance while they were trying to transfer him to a specialized facility. When I got home that night, Chloe called. Her voice was soft, performative. Ethan, I know people are being mean online, but I just wanted to remind everyone about boundaries. You shouldn't have handled her like that. I was eating a chicken wing, the bone snapping between my teeth. I said, the next time you see a woman with an arterial spray, remember to ask her for a signed privacy authorization waiver before you help. There was a pause. You've changed. I licked the grease off my fingers. I haven't changed, Chloe. You just finally showed your true colors. I hung up and opened my laptop. I exported the full, unedited security footage from the trauma bay. I made 3 backups. Then, I logged into a Burner X account and shared the viral thread. I commented one thing. Every word you people scream today will be a slap in your own faces tomorrow. The next morning's briefing was tense. The head nurse started, Dar. Miller, the kid in bed 5 is spiking a fever and seizing. The pediatrician is stuck in traffic. I'm a junior resident now. I interrupted. I just fill out paperwork and change bandages. She blinked. But you're the most senior trauma surgeon on the floor. I opened my thermos and blew on my tea. Last time I saved someone, it was harassment. If I miss a vein on a kid, are you going to call me a pedophile next? Nobody spoke. I leaned back and scrolled through my phone. A video popped up. Man-sues bystander who gave him CPR for broken ribs. I liked the video. At 10 a.m., the emergency bell rang. Cardiology was sending over a massive heart attack. BP was 70/40ths. The cath lab was ready, but the lead surgeon was a fellow I used to mentor. His hand was shaking. He couldn't get the wire in. 15 minutes passed. The patient's pupils began to dilate. The chief ran in. Ethan, get in there. I looked at him. I'm not the attending. You signed the disciplinary papers yourself. The man is dying. Then your chosen surgeon is failing him. You can save him. I'd love to, but the hospital won't let me. You're afraid of me touching a woman's underwear, but you aren't afraid of me touching a man's heart. The chief's face turned purple. Ultimately, they tried to transfer the patient to a university hospital. The ambulance flipped in the rain on the highway. The patient died on impact. At lunch, Dr. Reed sat across from me. He lowered his voice. You shouldn't have just watched him die. I picked up a piece of broccoli. I didn't watch him die. The hospital's bureaucracy did. But you have the skill. Skill isn't a hall pass. I was publicly crucified for a pair of leggings. If I went into that cath lab, they'd say I was lashing out through surgery. He was speechless. I said, you think I want this? I was pushed into this corner. At 3 p.m., I was called to the director's office again. Same room. Same faces. The director cleared his throat. Ethan, about today. We're devastated. I chewed on an apple. Yeah, it's a tragedy. But you have to understand, the hospital isn't a tough spot. The tough spot being that you sacrificed a doctor to buy a few days of quiet from the internet. He sighed. The social pressure was too much. So you'd rather have a dead patient than a doctor who crosses boundaries? No one answered. I finished the apple and tossed the core into the bin. Starting today, I'm strictly adhering to my new job description. I handle minor cases. I don't use my senior privileges. I don't overstep. Every emergency waits for a signed authorization from the attending of record. As I walked out, I heard someone whisper, he's being vindictive. I didn't look back. At home, Chloe called again. She sounded concerned. Ethan, are you okay? I heard you're refusing to work in the ER. I was eating spicy takeout. The red oil floated on top of the soup. I said, I learned my lesson. You told me to mind boundaries, so I'm drawing a very clear line. I didn't mean it like that. You meant exactly that. You said I shouldn't have touched her there, so I won't. From now on, anyone who's dying will have to wait for your personal approval. She was silent for a few seconds. Do you have to be so difficult? Difficult? Did you ask if I wanted to be difficult when you held that meeting to demote me? I hung up and checked X. The hashtag was still there. Hashtag Dr. Underweargate. It was full of insults. A few stray voices tried to defend me. It was an emergency. He had to see the wound. If that were his wife dying, would he care about her modesty? The comments were immediately buried by trolls. A new post appeared. Word is this doctor has a history of issues. I heard he's inappropriate with the nurses. I screenshot it all. I forwarded the screenshot to the hospital's internal group chat. I captioned it. Whoever is starting these rumors, remember that digital footprints don't wash away. Nobody dared to reply. The next morning, the ICU paged a code crimson. A mother had hemorrhaged after a C-section. Blood pressure was undetectable. The head of OBGYN was dripping with sweat. Uterine atony. The blood bank can't keep up with the loss. Someone suggested, get Dr. Miller in here to do a manual compression. The chief hesitated. Is he even allowed on the floor right now? We don't have anyone else. When they found me, I was filing charts. I didn't even look up. Sorry, I'm not participating in critical rescues anymore. A woman is going to die. Then let her. I've been officially branded a privacy risk. If I touch a postpartum mother, does that count as a second offense? You tell me. They stood there stunned. Eventually, they called in an outside specialist. The flight was delayed by 2 hours. The mother bled out before he arrived. The family was already screaming about a lawsuit in the hallway. I sat in a break room, eating instant noodles. I added an egg. The broth was a bit too salty. On the third day, a hospital-wide memo was posted. I was being cited for passive performance of duties. It was pinned to the most prominent bulletin board. I walked past it, ripped it down, folded it into a paper crane, and tossed it in the trash. Nurse Sarah whispered to me, "Aren't you angry?" I chewed on a dry noodle. Anger is useless. But they're about to find out something. Find out what? That the thing keeping them awake at night isn't a disciplinary memo. What is it? It's the fact that the next time someone is dying, I'm still not going to stand up. I took a sip of the soup and went back to my noodles. My phone buzzed. It was a message in the nursing staff group. Chloe had shared a link. How modern women can protect their rights in medical settings. The article was about my underwear incident. She called it a classic example of male-centric violent assistance. I finished reading, took a screenshot, and added it to a new folder on my desktop titled Evidence 3. Director Vance's son, a high school football star, was brought in that afternoon. Shattered tibia and fibula. His toes were already turning purple. The head of orthopedics shook his head at the x-rays. The reduction is too complex. One wrong move, and the nerve is gone. Someone suggested, what about Dr. Miller? He's the best at complex trauma. Vance slammed the table. That creep? The hospital should have fired him already. His son was moaning on the gurney. Dad, it hurts. Hold on, son. We're getting a specialist from the city. They waited all day. The big shot specialist was stuck in surgery and couldn't make it. By the second day, the kid's leg was swollen like a watermelon. Compartment syndrome was setting in. A nurse whispered, if we don't move now, he's going to lose the leg. Vance's face was like stone. At 9 p.m., he came to the ER to find me. His suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. His voice was uncharacteristically soft. Ethan, look, the past is a misunderstanding. We're all on the same team. Can you just... But take a look. I was playing a game on my phone. Level 2 was a bitch. Sorry, I only handle coughs and band-aids now. He hissed through his teeth. The hospital can restore your title. I laughed out loud. Will restoring my title delete the comments on X? Will Chloe apologize? When you guys were voting to punish me, nobody called it a misunderstanding. He lowered his voice. What do you want? I put my phone down and looked him in the eye. I'll do it. On one condition. His eyes lit up. You post a public statement on the hospital's official social media. State clearly, Dr. Ethan Miller's actions during the emergency rescue were medically necessary and professional. There was no misconduct. And then tag Chloe Bennett and tell her to retract her statements. His face turned a sickly shade of gray. That's personal vendetta. I shrugged. When you threw me under the bus, were you thinking about my personal feelings? He stormed out, the door slamming behind him. I went back to my game. At 2 a.m., the alarm went off. A nurse ran in. Director Vance's son passed out from the pain. There's no blood flow to the foot. He needs surgery now. Then do it, I said. I'm not the lead. Don't call me. But no one will take the case. The surgeons say the risk of a lawsuit is too high if they fail. Then transfer him. It's a torrential downpour outside. The highway is closed. Tough luck. She was near tears. He's the director's son. If he loses his leg. I cut her off. If you were the son of a janitor, would you be crying? Or would you have already sent him home with a thoughts and prayers card? She had nothing to say. In the end, they paid $10,000 for a private surgeon to fly in through the storm. The guy almost crashed his car on the way from the airport. The surgery took 3 hours. They saved the leg, but the recovery would take a year. His football career was over. The next day at lunch, I was eating pasta. Vance walked up behind me and stood there. I didn't look up. He's stable, Vance said. I slurped a noodle. Oh, the bill was $20,000. Insurance won't cover the private specialist. I picked up a piece of garlic bread. Out of network is always expensive. He stared at me. You could have solved this with one surgery. Why did you let it get this far? I put my fork down. You could have solved this with one statement. Why did you wait until your son was almost an amputee? He had no answer. You aren't here to thank me, are you? I asked. Of course not. Then why are you here? Not satisfied with the show yet. He whispered. You want to make a point? You made it. Are we done? I wiped my mouth and stood up. Not even close. What else do you want? I want the whole hospital to know that when power acts maliciously, it thinks it's only stepping on one person. It doesn't realize it's digging a hole for everyone. I walked to the trash can and tossed my tray. I added, and tell your son that next time he plays, he should check if the team doctor has been bullied out of the job by people like his father. He stood there, frozen. I walked past the bulletin board and saw a new notice. Revised protocol for patient privacy during emergency procedures. I took out a pen and signed my name at the bottom. Ethan Miller. Then I drew a check mark next to it. It meant, read, but will not comply. Back in the on-call room, I opened my laptop. I exported the recording of Vance begging me for help the night before. New folder. Evidence for. I uploaded it to the cloud and locked it. Chloe started live streaming. Her account name was Woke Medic Chloe. Her brand, modern female empowerment. Her first major topic, when love clashes with principles, I chose principles. She was wearing a beige sweater, the lighting soft and flattering. Her voice trembled. I once had a fiancé, a doctor. On the surface, he was noble, but in reality, he was controlling and lacked boundaries. The chat blew up. So brave, Chloe. Support the queen, she said. Once, during a rescue, he cut a woman's underwear. He claimed it was for medical reasons, but his hand stayed there far too long. I sat in the break room, chewing gum, watching the stream. She continued to cry. As a woman, I couldn't accept it. I spoke up and I was bullied. They said I was destroying his career. The audience was heartbroken. The viewer count hit 80,000. She took the opportunity to drop a link. Safety pepper spray for women, $29. 99 limited time offer. She sold 20,000 units in 10 minutes. Brands were already reaching out for sponsorships. I thought that was the end of it. On the third day, internet sleuths dug up her internship records. She had forged 3 patient charts and lied about her surgical participation hours. They found a voice recording. It was her years ago, begging me to take the fall for her mistake. Ethan, if I don't get these credits, I won't pass my residency. Just do this for me once. Nobody will check. In the recording, I replied, fine, but I'm keeping a record. Now the whole world heard it. Even worse, someone dug up a video of her taking a kickback under the table. A patient's family had filmed her accepting a $1,000 envelope. Her excuse back then, it's just a gift from their hometown. But I knew the truth. I was the one who covered for her that day, telling the board it was just a thank you card with some dried fruit. I uploaded that security footage anonymously to a medical forum. Headline, she calls me inappropriate, but she has no bottom line. I included a screenshot of a love letter she wrote me 3 years ago. The way you focus during a rescue. You look like a superhero. I love the man you are when you're saving lives. The internet exploded. The hashtags shifted instantly. Hashtag Chloe Bennett fraud. Hashtag hypocrite medic. She takes bribes but complains about a doctor's hands. She was just scared her boyfriend was more talented than her. Her account was mass reported. The platform banned her for 30 days for spreading misinformation and fraudulent persona. Her brand deals vanished overnight. The live streaming company issued a statement distancing themselves from her. She didn't show her face for 5 days. I thought she'd finally shut up. On the 6th day, I was at the grocery store buying ramen. I turned into the personal care aisle and saw her crouching by the feminine hygiene products. Her head was down, clutching a pack of pads. Her shoulders were shaking. She was sobbing. I didn't go over. I stood there for a few seconds, then tossed a pack of wet wipes toward her. It landed at her feet. She looked up, eyes red and swollen. When she saw me, her lips trembled, but she said nothing. I put the ramen in my basket and turned to leave. She called out, "Do you really have to destroy me?" I stopped. "Destroy you? You walked yourself into this wall, Chloe. I just wanted to live a better life. A dignified life." Dignity? You traded my professional integrity for clout. Did you think about dignity then? She looked down. I didn't have any other way. The hospital is all about seniority. I was never going to move up. The live stream was my only chance to break out. I sneered. "So you framed me as the villain to build yourself a pedestal?" I didn't. You did. You thought people have short memories? They only have short memories until they find a reason to dig. She started crying again. I didn't feel a thing. "You can cry all you want," I said. "Just don't expect me to hand you a tissue." I pushed my cart forward. After a few steps, I stopped. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket. It was a printout of the screenshot where she shared the video of me in the trauma bay. I taped it to the shelf next to her, right over an ad for intimate care. I had written a line in red marker at the bottom. She said this shouldn't be touched. But she forgot that life is more important than face. I walked away. I heard something hit the floor behind me. I don't know if it was the wipes or her dignity. The next day, a customer photographed the sticker and posted it online. Caption: found in the supermarket. A doctor's revenge on the shelves. 200,000 likes. The comments were brutal. This is a masterpiece of petty justice. Every grocery store in America needs one. I didn't share it. I didn't respond. I just went back to the food truck and tried the spicy version of the burrito. The vendor asked, "You're getting famous, Doc?" "I'm not famous," I said, taking a bite. "Humanity is just getting exposed." He laughed. "Well, eat up. You need the calories to survive the spotlight." By the 37th day of my malicious compliance, the hospital had suffered 6 major incidents. In cardiology, a catheterization went wrong. The wire punctured a vessel, and the patient suffered an immediate stroke. The family stormed the office and smashed the chief's computer. In pediatrics, a doctor misdiagnosed an acute appendicitis as stomach flu. After 2 days, the child's appendix ruptured, leading to peritonitis. The child died. In OB/GYN, a delay in switching to a C-section left a newborn with severe oxygen deprivation. The baby was revived after 30 minutes, but had permanent brain damage. The complaints were through the roof. The state insurance auditors moved in. The Department of Health sent a warning letter. If another incident occurs, your Level 1 trauma accreditation will be suspended. Panic set in. No surgeon wanted a lead. Critical patients were being transferred out, but other hospitals started refusing them. Their logic was cold. If you can't handle it, sending them here just raises our mortality rate. That night at 9 p.m., the director and the entire hospital board showed up at my apartment. They stood outside my door in the rain. I didn't open up. The doorbell rang for 10 minutes. Finally, Dr. Reed's voice came through the intercom. "Ethan, a liver cancer patient, is hemorrhaging on the table. They can't find the source. The surgeon is lost." I was sitting inside, eating ramen. The soup was getting cold. "Then let him die. I'm just a junior resident. I don't do rescues. If he dies, the whole board will be cited for negligence tomorrow." I made my terms clear. You wanted to work? Pay the price. They stayed there. No one left. The rain got heavier. No one had an umbrella. 2 hours later, I opened the door. I was wearing my white coat, not the clean one I use for rounds, but my old trauma coat with the faint, scrubbed-out bloodstains. "Cool mean. Let's talk." The meeting room was my cramped kitchen table. The director spoke first. "We were wrong. I cracked some sunflower seeds." "Wrong about what?" "Sacrificing you to quiet the internet." "And we reported Chloe's video to the board without verifying it. We were too eager to shift the blame." I nodded. "Better. We want you back to lead emergency surgery," the director said. "Full restoration of rank, back pay, and the disciplinary strike is wiped." I spat out a seed shell. Wiping a file doesn't stop the whispers in the hallway. Vance looked down. "The thing with my son. It was my fault. I shouldn't have been so stubborn." I ignored him. "I'll come back, but I have 2 conditions." They leaned in. "First, a hospital-wide town hall where you publicly state that my actions were medically necessary and compliant with the Medical Practice Act. Second, the entire nursing department and the board of directors must issue me a written apology for spreading unverified information that damaged my reputation." The room went silent. The vice director frowned. That's a lot to ask. A lot." I laughed. "When you voted to demote me, did you find it hard? You fired a doctor without a hearing. Now you're worried about the feelings of the people who stabbed me in the back." Reed whispered, "The nursing staff has over 60 people. A collective apology is a PR nightmare." "A nightmare?" I stared at him. "The whole country calling me a sexual predator was a nightmare. You guys didn't seem to mind that." The director rubbed his hands. "Can we just have Chloe apologize again?" "No." "Why?" "Because she wasn't alone. When she posted that video, people in the staff group chat liked it. They said it was about time someone reined him in. You all watched. That makes you accomplices. This is too much." I looked at him. "Too much. The day you were begging me to save your son's leg. You looked a lot more desperate than this." His lip trembled. "You have 1 hour to decide," I said. "Agree, and I'll sign the papers. Disagree, and keep waiting for the next body bag." I walked to my bedroom and lay down. "I'm going to sleep. I want an answer by 6:00 a.m. I didn't sleep. I listened to them arguing in my kitchen. At 1 a.m., there was a knock. The director handed me a folder. It was a draft for the town hall announcement and 64 signed apology letters from the staff. "Tomorrow morning, 10:00 a.m. In the auditorium," I said. "Aren't you going to sleep? I've slept enough. Why did you force them to do this?" I put on my jacket. "I'm not forcing them. I'm teaching them. The next time they want to step on someone to get ahead, I want them to look at their own feet and wonder if they're standing on solid ground. I took a pen and signed the agreement. Ethan Miller. I drew a check mark. Deal. But not a reconciliation. The town hall was packed. The nursing staff sat in the front rows, all in uniform, clutching their apology letters. The director read the statement. After a thorough internal review, it has been determined that Dr. Ethan Miller's actions during the emergency in question were fully compliant with medical standards and necessary to save the patient's life. All previous disciplinary actions are hereby rescinded. The room was as silent as a graveyard. No one clapped. I stood in the wings, drinking ice water. Then came the apologies. The head nurse stood first. Her voice shook. I apologize for the spread of unverified information and the damage it caused to Dr. Miller's reputation. Then the second. Then the third. One by one. Some were crying. Some were expressionless. Chloe was the last to go up. She read her statement, didn't look at me, and walked straight out. I walked onto the stage. I didn't give a speech. I just made an announcement. As of today, I'm back in the ER. The rules are the same. Minor cases get standard care. Critical cases, I'll take them. But under one condition. Anyone who tries to block me from saving a life will be held personally and legally responsible for the outcome. Nobody dared to respond. The next day, I was barely 10 minutes into my shift when a nurse ran in. Dr. Miller, construction accident, splenic rupture, pelvic fracture, and a torn urethra. He's in hemorrhagic shock. Trauma Bay 1, I ordered. The anesthesia was being prepped. A group of residents were hovering, hands fumbling. Blood pressure was bottoming out. Should we get a CT first to check for retroperitoneal bleeding? One asked. By the time a CT is done, he'll be cold, I said. I opened him up right there. I reached in, feeling through the blood. 3 seconds to locate the source. The iliac artery branch was shredded. Blood was geysering. I jammed my finger into the rupture and clamped it with the other hand. 5 minutes later, the vessel was tied. Blood pressure stabilized. The monitor went back to its steady rhythm. The residents were still staring. The textbook says image before exploration, I said. Reality says patients don't get sick according to your PowerPoints. The next time there's a massive bleed, don't worry about privacy protocols. Staying alive is the ultimate civil right. Director Vance and a few board members walked in for a floor check. They didn't look happy. I said, in front of everyone, Director, you called my actions inappropriate during the town hall. I suggest you get a psychiatric evaluation. Slandering medical staff is a legal liability. His face stiffened. He wanted to argue, but he didn't dare. After all, those 64 apology letters were still posted on the hospital's intranet. A young nurse couldn't help but clap. I glanced at her, and she immediately looked down. You shared that video too, didn't you? I asked. She turned bright red. It's fine, I said. People make mistakes. Just make sure the next time someone is saving a life, you don't use them as a stepping stone. We continued rounds. We got to the bed of Dr. Brandon Hayes. He was the vice lead of the ER and one of the loudest voices calling for my demotion. Now, he wouldn't even look me in the eye. Dr. Hayes, I said, last time you voted for my punishment, you said I was dangerous. Do you still feel unsafe? He stammered, at the time, the public pressure. So you just picked a side? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I turned to the interns. Let me tell you something. Of the 7 people who voted to punish me, 5 of them now cross the street when they see me. 2 of them have tried to buy me dinner to smooth things over. But they forgot one thing. Medicine isn't about relationships. It's about who can save a life when the clock is ticking. And right now, that's me. I walked out of the room. Dr. Reed caught up to me. That was harsh, Ethan. Harsh. I opened a bottle of water. I'm just giving them back exactly what they gave me. And I'm not done yet. That afternoon, we got word that the Department of Health was conducting a surprise inspection. The lead inspector was a young guy in a sharp suit, a recent Ivy League grad. He spoke in corporate speak and carried a tablet. We've noticed a high volume of non-standard procedures at this facility, he said. For instance, performing emergency surgery without a signed informed consent form. That is a major violation. I was walking by holding a soda. Last week, we had a placental abruption. The baby was suffocating. It would have taken 40 minutes to track down the husband for a signature. You want me to watch the baby die? Or should I just start cutting? He pushed up his glasses. Procedural justice is the foundation of the law. I laughed. If your mother was dying, would you want the doctor to film a TikTok announcing the commencement of a legal rescue? Or would you want him to save her? The room gasped. He turned red. That's a personal attack. I threw the surgical record on the table. From the moment the patient entered the door to the moment the baby was delivered. 6 minutes, 47 seconds. By your standard protocol, it would have been 40 minutes. The probability of cerebral palsy would have been 87%. He was speechless. An older expert next to him sighed. Son, you've spent too much time in office. You've forgotten what the primary mission of a hospital is. The inspection team eventually changed their report. Emergency measures under special circumstances were deemed reasonable. No further action. Before he left, the young inspector whispered to me, Dr. Miller, do you think I'm too idealistic? I handed him a cold tea. Idealism isn't the problem. Idealism without a grasp of reality is what kills people. Brandon Hayes collapsed while he was doing rounds. He clutched his chest and went down. A nurse screamed, Dr. Hayes is having a heart attack. The EKG showed an acute anterior wall MI. Blood pressure was 90/60. He was losing consciousness. The green channel was activated. They prepped the cath lab for a stent, but his wife blocked the door. I heard there's a doctor here who's the best. Dr. Ethan Miller. I want him to do it, or we aren't doing this surgery. The staff was stunned. The chief called me. Ethan, a man's life is on the line. Give him a chance. I was boiling water for ramen. It had just started to bubble. I'm not going. Why? Because on the day he voted to ruin my career, he didn't give me a chance to explain. But he's a patient. And I was a patient too. The one you all put on trial. The phone went silent. 5 minutes later, the director called. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Ethan, the hospital owes you a debt. But if he dies, we'll never move past this. Please. I didn't hang up. I turned off the stove. The noodles were already soggy. I'm coming. I walked into the cath lab and pulled on my gloves. The scrub nurse handed me the tray. I looked at her, and her hand shook. She had been one of the most active people sharing Chloe's video. I put on the lead apron and stepped up to the table. Hayes lay there, gasping. When he saw me, a flicker of hope crossed his eyes. I thought he might say thank you. Instead, he wheezed, You have to save me. My kids are still small. I didn't answer. I pushed the wire in. The imaging showed a 100% blockage in the LAD artery. A widowmaker. My movements were precise. Within 10 minutes, the vessel was open. Blood flow was restored. The monitor's waves settled. The surgery was a success. He woke up as he was being rolled back to his room. The first thing he said to his wife was, Go thank Dr. Miller. She ran to find me, trying to grab my hand. I pulled away. Don't. She blinked. I'm so sorry. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for medical ethics. The next day, during rounds, he was propped up in bed. He reached out his hand. Ethan, thank you. I was wrong about everything. I shouldn't have. I kept my hands in my pockets. Save the performance. You only cared about standing with the leadership when I was being buried. Now that you're the one in the bed, you suddenly remember how to be a human being. He turned pale. I know I failed you, but people make mistakes. You didn't make a mistake, I interrupted. You made a calculated choice. You knew I was right, but you were more afraid of the director than you were of the truth. So you pushed me under. Now you realize that the only person who can save you is the man you tried to destroy. He looked down, unable to speak. I turned to the other doctors. Remember one thing. A doctor's heart is for the patients, not for the cowards. I walked out. The head nurse followed me. You won't even accept his apology? What is an apology worth? He almost ended my career. Now that he's staring at death, he wants to play nice? It's too late. And besides, I added, I don't need his gratitude. I want everyone here to know that when you betray the person who can save you, one day, you'll be the one on your knees begging him to come back. Back in the on-call room, my takeout arrived. Spicy noodles. I added an extra egg. My phone buzzed. Someone had posted a photo in the staff group. Hayes' bedside was covered in fruit baskets. A card read, Thank you, Dr. Miller, for saving my life. From the Hayes family. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't share it. I just put my phone face down and ate my noodles. Halfway through, Dr. Reed came in and handed me a coffee. Did you hear? His wife went to the director's office to complain. About what? That you refused to accept their gifts and that your attitude was unprofessional. She said she didn't feel enough sincerity from you. I laughed so hard, I nearly choked on a noodle. So, let me get this straight. I saved his life, and now I'm supposed to smile and say thank you for the fruit basket? Reed shook his head. Human hearts are harder to treat than hardened arteries. I finished the soup. It doesn't matter. From now on, they aren't afraid of my skill. They're afraid of my mood. As long as I'm here, nobody will dare pull that shit again. I stood up and tossed the container. That's the best kind of revenge. The DOH team came back for their annual quality review. The same inspector was there, tablet in hand. They went straight to emergency surgery to audit the charts. They found a case of acute pancreatitis that turned into a surgical emergency. I was the lead. I had moved to an open surgery without a signed consent form because the patient was crashing. The inspector looked up. This is a major violation. The signature came 8 minutes after the anesthesia started. This is grounds for citation. The staff went quiet. Reed tried to explain. The patient was in shock. Procedure is the bottom line, the inspector said. No matter how urgent, you cannot bypass the rules. I was typing up a report. Without looking up, I said, the patient arrived in shock. Amylase was through the roof. The CT showed massive leakage. Her husband was in a meeting and didn't answer the phone until the 17th call. If I waited for him to get here, she'd be dead. You want her to be a rule-following corpse. He pushed his glasses up. The system is designed to prevent doctors from acting unilaterally. The system takes 3 forms and 4 signatures, I said, slamming the chart on the desk. By the time that's done, she'd have multi-organ failure. Tell me, is her life important? Or is your checklist important? I pulled up the security footage of that day. The screen showed me charging into the OR, prepped for an open laparotomy. We're out of time. A nurse hesitated. The family hasn't signed. Forget the signature. We're losing her. I opened the cavity. Bloody fluid sprayed out. I found the bleed in 3 minutes and stopped it. The whole process was surgical poetry. I pointed at the monitor. See that? At the 7-minute mark, her heart rate stabilized. The signature you're so obsessed with didn't arrive until the 15-minute mark. So, you want a compliant body, and I want a living patient. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. One of the medical experts on the inspection team whispered, "This clearly falls under the emergency exception clause." The young inspector still looked stubborn. "But you didn't file the retroactive justification form." I sneered. "Justification for what? When you guys came to investigate the video Chloe shared, did you bother with a justification for slander form?" He was silent. "You people in the bureaucracy love this," I said, sitting in an office looking at PowerPoints, using KPIs to measure life and death. Patients aren't data points. Life isn't a check mark on your report. The director tried to play mediator. "Ethan, let's watch the tone." I stared at the inspector. "How old are you? 30? Have you ever pulled an overnight shift? Have you ever held a teenager's internal organs together after he jumped off a building? Have you ever seen a blue-collar worker with a rebar through his chest tell you to save my buddy first?" He didn't say a word. "You haven't. You only have a degree, a title, and a template. I have 327 primary trauma surgeries on my record. 46 of them were outside the protocol. You want to cite me? Fine. Tomorrow, I'll package all 327 files and post them online. I've already got the headline. The DOH says I'm a criminal for saving lives. What do you think?" He panicked. "You can't do that." "I can. And I've already screenshot this conversation. Every word you just said about procedure over results will be the caption for my next viral post." His lip was trembling. Finally, the team wrote in their report. Emergency measures under critical conditions were justified and compliant with clinical reality. No further action. Before they left, the inspector slipped me a business card. On the back, it said, "Sir, can we add each other on WhatsApp? If I run into a tough situation, I'd like to ask for your advice." I didn't add him. I used the card as a bookmark for a medical journal. That afternoon, Dr. Reed saw the card. "You're not going to talk to him?" "Why would I? If he's on my side today, he'll just be on someone else's side tomorrow. I don't want one person to bow. I want all of them to know that as long as I'm here, no one can use procedure as a murder weapon." The year-end awards list was posted. Outstanding Physician of the Year, Dr. Brandon Hayes. The reason? For fostering team unity and department culture. I looked at the list for 3 seconds. I went back to my office and printed a resignation letter. No handwriting. Standard 12-point font. Resignation letter. To hospital board. Reason? Personal career adjustment. I can no longer adapt to the current professional environment. Signed, Ethan Miller. I didn't turn it in. I made 10 copies. I taped one to the hospital's main entrance, one on the cafeteria door, one next to the nursing station, and one directly onto the door of the board of directors. Headline in bold. I saved all of you, but I'm not outstanding enough. By 3 p.m., the director burst into the ER. He was red-faced. "What the hell is this?" "I'm resigning," I said. "Labor laws allow it." Do you know what the reaction is outside? The internet is exploding. I opened my phone. Hashtag Ethan Miller resigns was #1. The comments were a bloodbath. Classic. The hero gets sidelined while the coward gets the award. Hayes is a joke. He wouldn't even step into a trauma bay last month. Blacklist this hospital. Don't go there if you want to live. Thousands of patients were commenting. He saved my dad last year. He did an emergency tracheotomy on my daughter. They say cutting leggings is a crime, but what about saving lives? The director lowered his voice. There were limited spots. You'll get next year. Next year. I laughed. Will the 6 patients who died while I was demoted be around next year? Do you have to be so extreme? I'm not being extreme. You all treated me like a leper. Now you want to use loyalty to keep me? He was panting. Think about the hospital. If you leave, who takes the hard cases? Don't have hard cases then. Or maybe, next time you give out awards, make saving lives a criteria. He had nothing. The next day, the DOH sent an inquiry about talent retention issues. A rival hospital called and asked, "Is Ethan Miller really leaving? We'll double his salary and give him his own department." They thought I was negotiating. I wasn't. I was actually planning to leave. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I knew that as long as I was there, they'd never truly rot. I needed to stay to keep them honest, but I had to make them think I was leaving. That night, I put the original resignation letter through the shredder. I tossed the scraps. Then I logged on to X and posted, "Thank you for the support. I am staying." Because I realized, as long as I'm here, you people will never dare to fully fall apart. I posted a photo of me sitting outside a trauma bay eating a hot dog, still in my white coat. The background was the green glow of a heart monitor. The caption ended with, "If I leave, what happens to you?" So I'm staying. The internet went wild. He's basically a nuclear deterrent for the hospital, a living hospital regulation. His title should be Guardian of the Bottom Line. The director supposedly smashed a teacup when he saw the post. Vance whispered, "He's holding us hostage." The director sneered, "He's not holding us hostage. We turned him into a nuclear weapon ourselves." 3 days later, a hospital-wide memo changed the award criteria. Critical rescue success rate and trauma participation were now mandatory metrics. Brandon Hayes' name was quietly removed from a list. Nobody mentioned department culture again. Reed came to find me. "You won." I didn't look at him. I was calibrating a ventilator. It's not about winning. It's about the fact that they finally learned to be afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of a man who actually has the guts to stop saving people. They knew that if I walked away, no one was coming to save them. A rainy night. An ambulance screamed into the bay. "Multi-vehicle accident. Critical trauma. We're losing him." I ran out to meet them. On the gurney was a young woman. Her forehead was split open, her face a mask of blood. BP was undetectable. Breathing was shallow. Pelvic fracture was obvious. The paramedics had already cut her jeans. Her upper thigh was a lake of blood. I saw it instantly. External iliac artery rupture. I jammed my hand into her groin to apply pressure. A nurse gasped, "Dr. Miller, the family isn't here, and that's a sensitive area. You want her to die with her dignity or live with some awkwardness?" I roared. My hand was deep in the wound, feeling the hot blood pulse against my fingers. I stripped off my own white coat to prop up her leg. "Get the oar ready. 6 units of ONEG now." We charged into the trauma bay. The monitors were screaming. Someone was taking a video on their phone. I didn't care. 10 minutes later, the vessel was tied. She was alive. During the post-op cleanup, Reed whispered, "Someone took a photo of you with your hand on her thigh." "Who?" "A new nurse from the 4th floor." She posted it to her private story with the caption, "Inappropriate contact again." I nodded. I didn't say anything. By the next morning, the photo was circulating. It wasn't public yet, but it was in every staff group chat. Headline: Dr. Miller makes sensitive contact with female patient again. Someone forwarded it to the patient's husband. He called the hospital, screaming, "What kind of hospital is this? My wife was unconscious, and he's touching her there." The director called me in for the 3rd time. He looked worse than ever. "Ethan, I know you were saving her, but the method, it can't keep being like this." I said, "How should I do it then? Let her bleed out before I touch her? Or wait for a board meeting to approve where I can put my hands?" He rubbed his face. Could we have a female nurse do the pressure?" "Sure," I said, standing up. "Go ahead and train every nurse in this hospital on vascular anatomy. Teach them how to find an iliac rupture in 3 seconds. Teach them how to use their fingers as a human clamp. When they can all do that, I'll retire." He was speechless. "You aren't stupid," I said. "You're just afraid of the internet. But have you thought about this? Every 3 seconds you spend worrying about a headline is 3 seconds closer to someone dying a preventable death." As I walked out, I taped a notice to the hallway wall. Emergency care liability waiver. Any physical contact necessary for life-saving procedures does not constitute a violation of privacy. Any objections must be filed in writing within 24 hours of the incident. Failure to do so constitutes legal acceptance of medical necessity. Ethan Miller. Nobody dared to tear it down. Nobody signed it either. On the third day, I exported the full security footage from the rescue. I edited it into a 10-minute video and uploaded it to a major platform. The title was blunt. This is what you call inappropriate contact. It started with the sound of the heart monitor flatlining. Then, the shot of me sprinting to the ambulance. The moment I pressed into the artery, blood sprayed onto my face. The background audio was my calm, cold instructions. Did you push the pressers? Get the blood in her now. Forget the clothes. Expose the wound. The video ended with a shot of me peeling off my gloves. There was a fresh scratch on the back of my hand from where she had spasm during the rescue. The subtitle read, "The first thing she said when she woke up was, 'Thank you.' While she was dying, you were worried about where my hand was." The video went viral. Millions of views. The tide turned completely. Were we the ones being manipulated? This is the reality of trauma medicine. Anyone who talks shit about this guy needs to watch this. The Department of Health issued a statement. We support medical personnel in taking necessary measures during life-threatening emergencies. Clinical decisions cannot be invalidated by retroactive moral judgment. That afternoon, the hospital passed a new regulation. Emergency Exemption Protocol. Written consent is not required for privacy-sensitive procedures during critical rescues. All disputes will be settled by a third-party ethics committee. I sat in the back of the meeting. I didn't clap. I didn't smile. Reed handed me a bottle of water. "You did it." "I didn't do it," I said. "A woman almost died." A video forced them to bow. I just didn't let go. When I got home, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Chloe. She had shared my video. No caption, just a like. I didn't reply. I opened my laptop. I created a new folder. Title, Final Chapter. I dragged every evidence folder into it, compressed it, and set a password. Rescue 123. I uploaded it to the cloud and deleted the local files. I lay down to sleep. In the middle of the night, the pager went off. Explosion at the construction site. 3 critical. 1 child with a tracheal rupture. I rolled out of bed and put on my shoes. My white coat was hanging on the door. I grabbed it, shook it out, and pulled it on. I walked out the door. This time, no one stopped me. No one took a video. From now on, as long as I'm standing here, they will never be able to turn saving a life into a crime. Story complete.